Picture this. You're gearing up for a family get-together at the lake.
Yeah.
You know, the cabin's all set, the boat's ready, and you're just waiting for Mom to show up.
Sounds idyllic.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? But then a day goes by. No Mom. 2 days. Still nothing. Calls go straight to voicemail.
Oh, God.
Exactly. You start to worry. So you check her house. Everything's in order. Nothing seems amiss.
So she just vanished.
Pretty much. That's the nightmare that the children of Georgia Smith faced back in the summer of 1999. And that's what we're diving into today. The perplexing disappearance of Georgia Smith.
So what kind of information do we have to work with here?
Well, we've got Rick's sources, which always makes things interesting. Official police reports, witness statements, and even a mysterious letter that pops up later.
Intriguing. Okay, so where do we start?
Let's set the scene. Georgia was last seen at her son Brett's place in Champlain, Minnesota.
Okay.
She'd been living on and off with him for about 10 years, splitting her time between his house and the family cabin up in Minong, Wisconsin.
So she was used to going back and forth.
Exactly. A fiercely independent woman who enjoyed her freedom and her family was used to her coming and going.
Got it.
So June 30th, 1999, starts off like any other day. Georgia's at Brett's concrete business, helping out with appointments, chatting with customers.
Normal stuff.
They even had lunch together.
Yeah.
Everything seemed totally fine.
But then,
out of the blue, she gets this sudden urge to head up to the cabin.
that evening.
That very evening.
Interesting. And this is days before the planned family get-together, right?
It's days. And she insists on going alone, even though Brett offered to drive with her.
Insistent.
Yeah. Almost like she was in a hurry.
Okay, what else?
Oh, and this is strange. She even leaves and then turns back because she thinks she forgot her property tax statement.
Wait, but you said everything seemed normal earlier?
Right, it did.
Yeah.
There was no indication of any stress or urgency before this sudden need to get to the cabin.
And the tax statement wasn't even due for another month.
You got it. It's like there's this hidden layer of something going on, something we're missing.
Definitely adds to the mystery. So what happens when she leaves for the second time?
Brett asks her to avoid a particular gas station along the way due to some safety concerns in the area, and he asks her to call when she gets to the cabin.
Standard dad stuff.
Right, but that call never came.
And that's when the alarm bells start ringing.
Not right away, actually. Brett figured she'd just unplug the phone at the cabin, which she often did, to truly get away.
Right. Makes sense given her independent nature.
But then her other children arrive at the cabin for the 4th of July celebration.
And no Georgia.
Exactly.
Uh-oh.
That's when that unsettling feeling turns into full-blown panic.
So the family reports her missing.
Right. And that's where the official investigation begins. But as we'll see, it's a case riddled with dead ends and conflicting information.
This is getting good.
So the police get involved, and they start their investigation at Brett's house, the last place Georgia was seen.
Makes sense.
They canvass the neighborhood, hoping someone might have seen her leaving that evening.
Standard procedure. And did anyone see anything?
A couple of neighbors remembered seeing Georgia and Brett talking in the driveway around 6:30 p.m.
Which lines up with Brett's account.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Georgia's other children are up at the cabin, going through her things, and they stumble upon something pretty concerning.
What did they find?
Evidence that suggests Georgia's finances weren't as straightforward as everyone thought.
Oh.
They found unpaid bills, credit card statements, things like that.
Sounds like she might have been struggling financially.
Yeah, and to add to the worry, they find checks made out to Brett.
Remember he had that checkered financial past we talked about?
Yeah, so this discovery really shifts the focus of the investigation.
I bet. So what did the police uncover when they dug into Georgia's finances?
Her credit report showed a debt of about $24,000, and there was no activity on her accounts after June 30th, the day she disappeared.
And those checks to Brett, how much were we talking?
Not huge sums, more like small loans to help him out when he was short on cash.
Did Brett admit to receiving those checks?
He did. He even insisted that he often helped Georgia financially, too, covering expenses, taking her on trips, that sort of thing.
So he claimed it was a two-way street.
Exactly.
But did he say how much he gave her the night she left for the cabin?
He did, but his story changed a bit in different interviews. Sometimes it was $50, other times it was a couple hundred.
That's suspicious.
Yeah, it raised some eyebrows.
So did the police suspect foul play at this point?
They had to consider it. Financial crimes are often driven by desperation, and they needed to rule out whether Brett might have harmed his mother for financial gain.
Right. Did Georgia have a life insurance policy that would have benefited Brett?
Not that we know of. It seems her estate, including the cabin, was to be divided among her 7 children.
So that angle doesn't really pan out.
If not financial gain, what other theories did they explore?
Well, they also looked into the possibility of a health-related incident.
Right. Georgia had those occasional memory lapses and a history of heart problems.
And there were reports that she had stopped taking her medication.
Plus, there was that whole thing with her driver's license.
Oh, yeah. Remind me.
She had a medical restriction on her Minnesota license, but Brett had helped her get a Wisconsin license without any restrictions.
Even though some of her other children had expressed concerns about her driving.
Exactly. It seems the siblings had differing opinions about George's independence and whether she could truly manage on her own.
Makes sense. Some might have felt she needed more support, while others believed she was fine on her own.
Like Brett.
Yeah. So while the family was grappling with their own theories, the police were busy chasing down every lead.
And I know there were a lot of reported sightings of Georgia and her car.
Right. Happens all the time in missing person cases. Most turned out to be nothing.
But there was that one lead from the Radio Shack manager that seemed pretty promising for a while.
Oh, yeah. What was that about?
About 3 weeks after Georgia disappeared, the manager of a Radio Shack in Spooner, Wisconsin, called the police.
Spooner. That's pretty close to the cabin, isn't it?
Very close. And this manager was adamant that she had interacted with a woman who matched George's description, driving a blue Mercedes just like George's, and even mentioning having a place in Menong.
Wow. Sounds like a solid lead.
It did. They even remember the woman wearing large, shiny rings, something Georgia was known for.
So what happened? Did it turn out to be her?
Sadly, no. Just as the police were getting their hopes up, the real customer from the Radio Shack came forward.
Oh, no.
It was a case of mistaken identity.
That must have been a huge letdown.
Definitely. Back to square one.
Oh.
But hold on to your hats because things are about to get even more bizarre as we move into the year 2000 when a mysterious letter surfaces.
A mysterious letter?
Yeah, like something straight out of a detective novel.
So in March of 2000, a cashier at a Walmart in Coon Rapids, Minnesota, told the police about this strange encounter. She'd been chatting with an older woman who noticed the cashier's "Where's Grandma" pin.
Those were everywhere back then.
Right. Part of the effort to find Georgia. And during their conversation, the cashier happened to mention that Georgia's grandson, Robert, also worked at that very same Walmart.
Small world.
It is a few days later this woman comes back, and this time she's got a handwritten letter addressed to Robert.
Specifically for Robert.
Yeah. She hands it to an employee, asks them to make sure Robert gets it, and then leaves without saying who she is.
Didn't even leave a name.
Nope. Totally anonymous.
Yeah.
And the letter itself, well, it was cryptic, to say the least.
Cryptic. How so?
It talked about a blue car in the woods, how license plates can be transferred or changed, even kept in junkyards for years. And then it went on to speculate that someone might be keeping Grandma, someone in poor shape, unaware that people were looking for her.
Wow, that's disturbing. And it was signed, "Love you, Jay?"
Exactly.
Jay, who's Jay?
That's the million-dollar question. The police tried to identify the woman who dropped off the letter, but the security footage from Walmart wasn't clear enough.
So a dead end.
Another one. She never came back. And to this day, nobody knows who Jay is or what connection they might have had to Georgia.
So we've got this mysterious letter that could mean anything or nothing. Did it at least lead to any new leads?
Sadly, not really. But with the one-year anniversary of Georgia's disappearance approaching, the police decided to ramp up their efforts. They re-interviewed family members and once again focused their attention on Brett.
Because of the checks?
Partly, but also because he was the last person to see her. And remember, he had passed a polygraph early on in the investigation.
Right.
This time they asked him to take a voice stress analysis test.
How'd that go?
He failed twice. But when the police checked with the FBI about the results, they were told that those tests aren't really considered reliable,
Darn.
and they're not something the FBI uses in their investigations.
Interesting. So not much help there.
Not really, and to make matters worse, when they asked Brett to come in for another interview, he initially agreed but then didn't show up.
What happened?
He called and said he wasn't going to cooperate anymore.
Can't say I blame him. He must have been feeling the pressure.
Definitely. He felt like he'd done everything he could to help and was tired of being treated as a suspect.
Understandable.
Yeah.
So with Brett out of the picture, what did the police do?
They went back to the theory that Georgia might have had an accident and her car ended up in a lake or a river somewhere. They even organized a dive team to search a pond in Wisconsin.
Any luck?
Nope, nothing.
Yeah.
Years passed, and despite occasional press conferences and renewed search efforts, the case went cold.
A cold case.
Unfortunately, in 2022, a volunteer dive team searched the St. Croix River, another possible route Georgia could have taken, but again, no trace of her or her car.
So after all this time, do we have any answers? What really happened to Georgia Smith?
We just don't know for sure. The lead investigator on the case still believes the most likely scenario is a tragic accident, but the lack of any hard evidence leaves room for other possibilities.
And that letter, with all its strange clues, just adds to the mystery.
It does. George's case is a reminder that even in a world overflowing with information, some mysteries remain stubbornly unsolved.
It's true.
Hmm.
And it makes you think, could she still be out there? Could she be living with someone who has no idea who she really is?
It's a long shot, but it's not impossible. The human mind can do amazing things, including suppressing traumatic memories.
So there's still hope, even after all these years.
Hope is all we have sometimes in these kinds of cases.
And if anyone out there has any information about Georgia Smith, no matter how small, please contact the Champlain Police Department. You might hold the missing piece of this puzzle.
That's right. Even the tiniest detail could be the key to solving this case.
Well, folks, that's our deep dives into the disappearance of Georgia Smith, a story full of twists, turns, and unanswered questions. A case that continues to baffle and intrigue us all these years later.
If this case has left you with more questions than answers, you're not alone. Georgia Smith's story is one that stays with you and reminds us that sometimes the truth remains elusive.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and never stop searching for answers.